Oh,
All right. Hi, guys. So noticeably there's a big absence here today. We'll wait a few minutes to get other people logged on, but Mike will not be here. So Sarah and I are here to help facilitate, but it's also AT Town Hall. So we can talk about whatever is on everyone's mind. Excited to see Irene and Lori's faces. Hi, guys. I'll see if the Rockford team turns their cameras on today. That's always a fun delight when they do. But yeah, we really don't have anything off the top of our heads. So if there's anything you guys wanted to bring to the group to chat about, go for it. Hey, Rockford. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, friends. Awesome. Awesome. How are things going? What's on your mind?
But so I have a bunch of students that Spanish is their first language. And so we have a lot of adaptive books and a lot of core books and a lot of other things that are in English. But I would like to find adaptive books in Spanish that are not on Teacher Pay Teacher. So our district will not allow us to download because of security risks for Teacher Pay Teacher. And I asked the Sherlock place, I always forget the name of the play, the thing in Rhode Island or Delaware that has adaptive books that you can go and print free adaptive books already on their website. I asked them if they knew of anybody that had anything in Spanish, and they said no, that they didn't. So I'm coming on here seeing if maybe there might be somebody else that has Spanish. And also, like, again, I can't use Teacher Pay Teacher. So that throws out a huge block of things that I could possibly use. Unless somebody wants to print them out PDF, I can't even print a saved file from Teacher Pay Teacher because it still might have, we got ransomware about 3 years ago. And so our district is very, 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 very leery of anything. So they will not let us, so I don't even want to take a file and download it to my computer to print it out. So thoughts or ideas?
so Tar Heel Reader has several languages, in fact, but Spanish is one. It has Dutch, French, Italian. I'm thinking Portuguese, Turkey, and I'm not sure what NORS is.
So, and I did go on there and I did, what I was looking for is I really like the Sherlock where they take like Where the Wild Things Are.
Uh-huh.
And it's in English, and then they, so it's a picture book. I mean, Tar Heel does have some that are in Spanish that people have made. Those are great, but I was really looking for being able to read them a book that they would recognize, because I did, they have Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, and as an adaptive book. And take that one and turn it into, I'd like to take that one, turn it into Spanish, and then be able to use the same, pictures on. Am I making any sense at all? Okay, that's what I was I'm looking for the Spanish version of Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. It's been adapted. I'm not asking for the world. I'm just, and the ones are fine too. I just find that honestly, I don't know between you and me, but the kids, when it's not a book that they don't recognize or that looks like a picture book, I don't get the same engagement of when I read those types of books. That has been my experience, but I have gone on there and looked. I just haven't seen anything that matches up to, like Where the Wild Things Are and Chicka Chicka Boom Boom.
I'm looking on Goodreads. Sorry, ReadWorks.
I'm pretty sure you could find the language in here somewhere. I just haven't found
Do you have to have a subscription for that one?
it. Free for teachers.
Other thought that I had is if you're looking for some of those familiar books, it's definitely not the same, but it's a get to buy for now. Is going to YouTube and finding videos of them reading those books in Spanish and then making sure you turn on the closed captioning too. Alyssa's throwing some links in the chat. The other one that's in the chat that's a really great resource is Unite for Literacy.
Mhm.
So you just have to click the English and turn it into Spanish on Unite for Literacy, and then those Spanish options come up. And then the YouTube that I put in the chat is the Spanish version of Chicka Chicka Boom Boom.
Okay. Not
Does
shown.
anybody know if Bookshare has their books in Spanish?
They do have Bookshare and Learning Ally both have a large set of books available in Spanish. So it depends on what book you're looking for.
So just a Learning Ally, our district paid to get Learning Ally for like 90% of our students because we have a lot of them that are not reading at grade level. So the challenging part is that I've tried to go through our curriculum department. Our teachers are, because Learning Ally has assigned a case list to every teacher.
That's great.
I don't have a case list. I don't have a class list. So I've tried getting to piggyback off of somebody, and Learning Ally is.
Yeah.
For a district, you have to have a class list. And any way of getting, unless the problem is I would have to sign in as a teacher, go through our whole signing in as a teacher, and this, I don't do that. I can. So does anybody have any experience with Learning Ally, or anybody that you could point me to that I could maybe email or talk to them saying?
Yeah, so I would talk to whoever is coordinating it in your state. I'm trying to think of where on their website you can find that information, or their main contact information, because I'm the coordinator for my entire district for Learning Ally, and there are ways that even if students are on independent student rosters, that you as a district level person can see all of them. So I think it's about how your district set up the rostering, that it could probably be adapted.
Okay, so I could, if I found, because our tech guy won't return an email. So if I maybe talk to the Learning Ally person, maybe then I can have them push our tech guy to say, do this.
Yeah, I would talk to Learning Ally. So we use Learning Ally from two different angles. So we have our students who qualify for, I'm in the state of Virginia, so our accessible instructional materials is AIM Virginia. So we have some students who require it and they have a partnership. AIM Virginia and Learning Ally have a partnership. So if you qualify for AIM Virginia, you also get a login for Learning Ally. With some of our CARES Fund money, some long, like 3-year subscriptions for Learning Ally for students who are reading below grade level and who have other, like through our tiered system of supports. They also have a subscription. So that is run by a different person. So there's different people that do it differently depending on how the student qualified. And that was a barrier that we had to kind of work through because our students with disabilities lost access when it became part of our tiered system of supports by accident because they were like defaulting to that bucket. So we had a little bit to work through, and Learning Ally worked with us to figure that out once we knew what was going on. So ask a few more questions about how the student got it. I sort of missed the beginning of your introduction to the conversation, but that can definitely impact how they qualified for it, if it was a subscription based or if it was through like your state accessible instructional materials program.
Pre-COVID, us in the office here, we had access because majority of our kids with special ed, we could sign in with the student with the special ed and be able to get in. Now, since during COVID, our district bought a license through something. And so now teachers have class lists in Learning Ally to then, assign things to students, but I don't have a class list. So it sounds like I just need to keep pushing from both Ally and from our district's perspective to try and get access to it. Because I think that's where I could find a lot of what I want is in Learning Ally if I can get into it. I just can't find a way to get into it. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like you'll have to talk to the person on Learning Ally who does the subscriptions. Because they'll know the contact person and they'll be able to help you.
Okay.
Because it defaulted, like I said, our students with disabilities then defaulted to like our tiered system of support. And so at elementary, our students access it through their classroom like everybody else in elementary. Once they get to middle and high school, they lose access because we don't have a countywide subscription at that point. So then they have to access through our state system where it's required for them. That's how we kind of worked ours out, but it's a little confusing and it was new. So it was very confusing when it first started.
All right, well then I at least know if I get in there that all the work I tried to do to try to get in there won't be for naught once I get in there. Because I never looked at when I had access to it, I never looked at it for Spanish, so I don't have any experience with it. But now that you're telling me that there's a lot of stuff in there, then I'll just keep pushing from my end on both ends to try and get in.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth pushing for access. And in the meantime, Unite for Literacy, there are some other places that you could go to find Spanish versions of those books.
Okay. All right, you guys have been extremely helpful because I've been pounding my head against the wall for the last 3 weeks because I tried to get Reading A to Z, I tried to get Learning Ally, and nobody, since I don't have a class list, I don't exist in a lot of curriculum worlds, and it's just been frustrating. So at least now I know if I keep going with Learning Ally, I can get what I need. I just have to be a nice pain in the butt, I guess, and I'm good at that. So
Persistent is important. Yeah.
Persistent. It is different. Like we have a lot of the same kind of challenges because we're not classroom teachers and we wanted to know, like, is the curriculum accessible, for science? And I said, well, I don't have a teacher account. I can't look at that. So we worked with our district to try and have like test or sample students. And then we also have like a sample personal learning device. Like in our district, we use iPads and MacBook Airs, some use Chromebooks or whatever, so that you could see what the student sees from their end. So those things are kind of system-wide things that take a little bit of time to come along. But once they do, it does make it a lot better because it's kind of hard to get access yourself.
Yeah,
As
that's
not a
definitely
teacher.
the build the relationship with IT end of things.
Yeah.
Because it helps tremendously when, we have issues sometimes with students who are still rostered at schools, but go on full-time hospital homebound. Like they lose textbooks, and like that to me, like a couple of years ago was like a 2-week drama to get fixed. Now I know the person at IT, I call them up and I say, hey, look, that thing happened again, and they're like, oh crap, okay, give us the information, we'll fix it, and that's a relationship building thing between whoever's, and sometimes that's curriculum, sometimes that's IT. I think it's a collaboration, relationship building when things are going well, so that when things aren't, you can be like, hey guys.
And normally it's just, I think a lot of the curriculum people down here send it to IT, and we've had such a turnover in IT. I don't know what our IT just can't, every time we turn around, there's a new face. And so I think that's the challenge, is that they turn over so quickly that we just can't even get there to know them.
Yeah.
And the ones around can't help me. It's like the ones that I know that's not their department per se. So
that's not their area. Yeah. Sometimes it does become difficult when the people aren't there anymore. And then how do you manage? And then I think it's about the bigger picture of systems, like Lauren was saying, okay, how do we put in place systems so that when they are considering a new something, like there's a question on their line of something that says, have you consulted does it work with our countywide AT support? Does it, so embedding some of those interwoven questions maybe, so that as they're considering new things, it's not, you don't have to come to the table after the thought. It's, as they're beginning this conversation about a certain thing, or when they were starting the process of, doing rostered Learning Ally, they would have gone, oh, wait, we have students who use AT that use Learning Ally. How do we want to manage that?
Another same kind of, situation is I have 3 students that Spanish is their first language, and so we gave them communication devices in Spanish. The challenge is only one of them has a full-time para. The other, she kind of floats between the other 2, the total of, there's 1 para for 3 students per se. And but anytime they go to an art, music, PE, the lunchroom, anywhere else in the classroom, and that para isn't with them, the kids are pushing, vamos, I know vamos, but pushing a Spanish word, and everybody in the building is kind of going, I don't know what you're saying. So in Snap, you can flip between, Spanish and English very easily, but in the other ones, it's not quite as easy.
So Touch Chat with Word Power is a couple more steps, but you can absolutely set it up to do that. Lamp Words for Life is the same, that you can absolutely set it up to do that. I don't know what else you guys are using in their district, but I'm trying to, Cough Drop absolutely can do that.
We use, unfortunately, the one kid has Proloquo, which is an older version.
Proloquo or Proloquo to go?
Proloquo to go.
Okay. We have to ask the distinctive question now that they decided to name the new one very similarly.
So how do you get people that are speaking one language on a community? I guess a bigger overarching question is how do you get people that are speaking in one language on a communication device and in a bilingual classroom where other people are going to know what they're talking about, but the minute they leave that classroom because the rest of the building is not bilingual, how can we, because a lot of people then are going to know how to touch a button to switch it, to switch over, there's a lot of training, there's a lot of training and all that, but how do you, experiences on that would be great to kind of try and help us English folk speaking to talk with these youngsters.
I was going to defer to an SLP first. So some SLP answered, and then I'll give my 2 cents.
So this isn't part of my SLP ness. I need to make sure I'm not like putting those words together. But really what comes to mind is their sensitivity training with the school too, not just with the student who's using the AAC system, but also when that student does go out into the other classrooms, how can educators, how can the principal, how can the lunch ladies, how can other peers interact with that student as well? Not just, are we switching back and forth on that system?
I get that, but I have a building that just lost its principal down to administration, and so they have an interim principal with no clue or idea if that principal is going to be coming back next year. And then I have a staff that even they don't, let's just say they're not they're not very open to communication devices. It's been a struggle.
I'm just a question. What happens with other students?
Well, in that building, there are no other students that are English speaking that have a device. It's just
No. I'm saying what happens with other students who are Spanish speaking first language and are like L1, was it L1? I think L1 learners and are just newly in there. They figure out how to communicate with those kids, right?
That's so. Because a lot of the times what they do is they use Google and turn it into, so they'll have their phone on them. And they'll figure out how to say hello, or they figure out they say it in English on their phone, and then they turn it over to the student and hit that button and say it in Spanish. Is that, so they use Google Translate
And
The
so when the
challenge-
student talks, they do the same thing in reverse, right?
Yes, and so they have done that with the device, but the challenging part is the time. You know, I mean, it's like, I got kids that we're learning how to use a device and they hit. I mean, the most of the time they hit words right now that are, you know, in very easy words that most of us know in Spanish, you know, like a lot of us do know in Spanish. But I'm just know that I see the adults getting frustrated when they go into a place where they don't know what it is and they just get this, you know, just, you know, I get the speaking English, you know, I kind of can see them in their head saying this, and I'm like, hey, they're speaking Spanish as their home language, and we got to meet them where, you know, that's what we have to do. And I'm just trying to help adults. The kids, I think, the kids got it. It's just
Right, the kids always do better than the adults.
that are not doing very well with it right now.
Yeah, I was trying to actually figure out what your exact question was, whether it was like very logistical that you needed kind of a way for the staff to toggle and learn what to do.
It's both. It's both the toggle,
Okay.
and I can do right now. We've got 2 using Snap and 1 using Proloquo to go. So it's the Snap one has actually been very helpful. Because it can flip so quickly. But the kid that's using Proloquo honestly probably doesn't even really necessarily need it. He has come so far in such a being in a bilingual classroom, magically the language and everything starts to just start coming out. Magic. Because he wasn't in a bilingual EC room where he got the device. But now he's in a bilingual kindergarten, and compared to where he was at the beginning of the year to what he is now, it's like he doesn't even need it, but we still have it for him because it's just he uses it enough to keep it with him. And why take it away until he's, you know, for a while. But the other 2 are using Snap, and that has been easier because we can flip it back and forth. But even sometimes trying to train all the people on where to push the button to flip it back and forth is
Yeah,
a challenge when they don't want to do it, I guess is what I'm. So there's 2 questions. The toggle.
the toggle question, I can answer, well, I could try to answer. the toggle.
I just did,
Lori
I just when.
Yeah, Lori did put in the chat box AssistiveWare's article on Proloquo and bilingual for Spanish. So that may answer some of what Lauren may say in writing for you to go
I
back.
also just made a test user. Can you hear me? Okay. Yes, no. All right. Sorry. I just made a test user in my own Proloquo, and it's really easy to swap between English and Spanish. You just open the cog and go down the speech language and hit the button for English, and hit the button for Spanish, and hold the shift. So I mean, it couldn't be easier. It just needs to be able to access the system button.
Okay.
But you do it in the setup of and when you make the user. I don't know if I'm assuming you can go back and change that. You know, I would just make a copy of their current user and then change the language.
And that's why I know that he's capable.
You know, go in and say second language when you go through the setup.
But again, it's that lack of motivation.
If you want, I'll walk you through it later.
I can go and do that when I get the device.
Okay.
But thank you so much. But again, I guess the next question is, how do you get English? I mean, a lot of the time they talk, and I'm not an SLP, a lot of the time the people that do respond back to them in English. So they're talking to them in Spanish, or they say the word in Spanish, but then we respond back to them in English. Should we respond back to them in Spanish as much as we can? Or I don't know any of those answers to those questions.
One more, I just wanted to follow up on what Lori had said. She gave the great directions One tip that's been really helpful, because I've had languages that I don't even have any understanding a little bit in, and I'm not really sure where to go as the SLP or AT specialist working with them, is I've made a QR code and it says need to switch languages, or something like I'm bilingual, I speak, or trilingual, I speak, and then what the languages are, need to switch my communication device, or need to support me to switch my language, and then put a little QR code, and it could just be a little video of you, hitting the cog and going to the language needed. I had a student that had a bilingual device. He was using like the old Snap Plus Core first, and then a Grid 3 on his Tobii device, and it was in Arabic and English, but it switched like not only the user area, but also the language. And so there was no motor plan that I could depend on. And so I made something kind of similar for this student, and it worked really well. It was really simple. And it's just like you scan it with your phone and, click, click.
Okay.
So that could be one idea. Okay. And then your other question, sorry, I was like thinking of that answer. And then your other question was just about how you should respond to the student. Should you, well, obviously, like, I know a little bit of Spanish myself, or a few little words in some languages, but I really don't know Arabic. And I had this student and I had to just respond in English, and I would model on his device or on a modeling device that was similar to his in English. So it's great to work with the family who can model in their home language. So that's what I would recommend, is working with them. You might need to have a few sessions with an interpreter to explain what AAC is and why it's so important to model, kind of give some of the basics. But the best is somebody that's their native language. It's going to be a better language model anyway.
Okay. And just as an aside, who do you talk to in Snap when the text or the verbiage sense is wrong? So like according to the,
Oh,
it's a tense is wrong, and I can go in and change an individual button, but the para was like, this is not the right tense, or this is not the right word for what they have in there. Is there somebody, do I just send she's got like 4 or 5 of them in Snap that she's given to me, and I don't have.
great. She can help the rest of us. She's probably going to change the system. There's probably, let me look up and see if there is like a feedback where you could send it. For that one, you could just reprogram that individual button to say whatever you need it to say. But systematically, if the app could get better because that tense is not right ever in Spanish, then, or whatever language, then that would be really helpful to know.
Right.
And the other thing is that, there are lots of regional varieties of Spanish where some words are correct and some words aren't. So, if depending on, where the paraprofessional is from and learned their Spanish may be different than where, than Mexico Spanish, or, that, and so the tenses may be similar or correct, but may not be correct in that speaker's mind. So just something to kind of keep in mind of. I think it's just support at Assistiveware.
It's funny, whenever I go there and she shows, I got another one, and I'm like, great, I have no idea what to do with these. I just, she gave me 2 or 3 of them last time I was there, and I'm like, okay, I will find out. So, and then I go in and I do try to use her voice to make the changes, because my voice in speaking Spanish is not. So that's been helpful to get her to understand that it's not just me, it's not, I didn't make this program up. I don't have any idea who did, but it's because sometimes I will say she gets a little, she's like, well, you should know this. And I'm like, I'm lucky if I can say hello in Spanish, let alone the tense of whatever, happens to be. But so I'm just trying to give as much to her, because she has been very helpful with the, she's the para for the 3 students with the devices. So she's been very helpful. It just is funny that she gets, every time I'm there, she's like, here's another one. I'm like, okay, great. I don't know what to do with this.
I just was writing in the chat. This just sounds like a great opportunity to coach her to take on a greater role. And maybe she could learn how to make a new button and she could learn how to do that. And then she wouldn't need you to do it when you come. She could be able to do them online as they're coming up. And she may feel really empowered to be sort of a leader on the device. And that could be really good because she's with the student all the time, or these 3 students all the time.
And that's what I did last time with her, was I had her record the voice, the new tense or whatever it was. But she says she's not very computer savvy, but she actually was pretty good with it when I was there. So now I just also have to get her to understand you can't break it. She's thinking,
Yeah.
She's gonna break it. So, all right, well, thank you. You guys have been very helpful.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Really good questions. And, tricky for all. We've all had these tricky ones.
But we finally have a bilingual SLP and a bilingual psychologist. So now we're getting more of the students with devices and other things. And so it makes it, so now we're going to start, at least in some of my buildings that are going to both bilingual and Gen Ed, we're going to start seeing more students in Gen Ed that are other language speaking type of students. So thank you. I won't turn the video off, but I'm going to turn the microphone on.
What else is on your mind now that you guys are here? We're thinking about some of those more difficult students, those more difficult cases. What else is going on in your neck of the woods?
I'll hop in. Something else that we're doing to support our students that are multiple language learners is we're working with the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies to translate the Project Core modules into other languages. And we've been running the Project Core. We ran a parent series for them. And we've been working with Dr. Lori Geist and Dr. Karen Erickson and Dr. Penny Hatch on this. So I'm hoping that, because this has been really impactful for us in our school division, is running it, but it wasn't equitable for everybody. So we wanted to make sure that we were having languages of our students that were reflective of this. And we've seen a huge growth in the support from families once they know about this. They're building nice relationships with their school team. They're participating in IEP drafting and writing goals, and they're more knowledgeable, asking about like, well, my student, shouldn't they have a shared reading goal? Or what about that predictable chart rating thing I read about? So it's been great because it scratches the surface on some of the early literacy practices as well as communication. So I'm really hoping to be able to have that available. And since it was an open source project, it's free and evidence-based. If you don't know about Project Core, it's just project-core. It's amazing, and it's 12 modules, all for free. You could run it as professional learning, which we've done. And again, having it in the other languages for our families is going to be a big step. And we're hoping to be able to share this with UNC so that it's up on the website for everybody, but it's taking some time because we haven't done it yet. We're doing our first ones in Spanish, Mongolian, Amharic, and Arabic. So be on the lookout. I'll let you know when they really get posted, but they've gone out to translators right now. So I feel really hopeful that it's really happening. And again, the UNC folks, they have been awesome and so supportive. So just know that you have that resource out there and it's free. And that was one thing that we used for systems change big time here in our school division, to bring everybody along in just understanding what is AAC, what are some of the emergent literacy practices, having shared language and shared knowledge about that. So hopefully I have good stuff to share really soon. Now it's out there, and so now I have to produce. So I hope our translators pick up the jobs and we can really move the needle forward on this.
That's just really amazing. I love that it's not just Spanish, that you guys are really touching on the languages that are hitting most in your district. And also that you were talking about doing family trainings. I think that's something that often is overlooked. Like we're so concerned about getting the educators trained, but also, like you said, you get more parent involvement with the IEPs. You have more parents being able to support some of those literacy strategies at home if they know about them. So I think that that's really fantastic. How did you go about, I mean, so there's 4 languages that your district's working on, correct? How, are there others that, like I noticed that like French wasn't spoken, or I don't know, like, are those the 4 most prevalent languages in the
Yes.
district?
Yeah, in our district, and it's sort of it's very like a micro location of some of the languages. It's we have really densely populated areas that are immigrant population, like they'll come. For example, we have the largest population of Ethiopian folks outside of Ethiopia. So their language is Amharic. And that's kind of like unique to my school division. And then like Fairfax County just won over, like they have a lot of Vietnamese. There in Annandale, there's a huge Korean population. I forget that, but their languages are different. It's like so micro located to, where we are. But there are others, like I just assessed a student and his home language is Urdu. And another student who's Bengali. And so I have a sort of like 1 hour little PowerPoint that I do with the families after students get a new communication device. And it's not too many slides, it's just like a starter session. So I asked them in our language resource center if they would translate that, and I translate that as the language comes up. So not the whole project core, that's sort of like a long-term big project, because I would love for everybody to take 12 hours of training, but just to get everybody started. So then when we meet with the family, like now I'll have Urdu and now I'll have Bengali after this. And so then when that student comes up or another student comes up with that language, I can send it to them. And then we send it home, even though we have gone over it in our meetings. One of the other things that I'm realizing is that some of our families don't have literacy in their first language or in their L1. So they may be able to speak orally and understand the language during the meeting, but then they can't go back and read the documents. So having a recording is really important for a lot of our families. So we're trying to record with our translators some of the meetings so that we have one that they could listen to as well as read. Because it's dense information. It's new to them. They've never heard what AAC is, or like what's modeling. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, so there's some technical language. You say something like attribute meaning. Like, what is that?
Right. Right.
So, and it's good. I've learned a lot about how children are learning language in other languages, like in other cultures. So being curious and asking some of those questions has been a nice way for me to learn a lot. Like, what are some of the first words that they said in their language, or that other kids do say? What does like normal language development look like in that language? And what are sort of some of the cultural norms?
Have your conversations with UNC sparked anything on their end to get other translations out there? I mean, I know you've got those micro locations right in your own neighborhood, but I mean, I feel like that would be something that would be really helpful everywhere.
I am really invested in this work. I would love to talk about expanding that. We've talked a little bit about some grant opportunities I think I need to get, for me, a few of these under my belt so I know how it goes with the translator. But I'm really interested in like what other languages might people need, and do we have the most helpful is like if we have somebody who is like a reading specialist, or I mean an SLP would be great. Somebody who knows and kind of understands the nuances of language or linguistics, or has some background in reading to be able to do the voiceover part of it, because some of the information is kind of like, dry, but then to have somebody sort of explain it or look at the translation and kind of through that lens. So tell me what other languages are you? I see Farsi. And it's not the same. Yeah.
I don't have any specific, I mean, I was actually gonna go ask Alyssa next, like, has this come up in that Facebook group about supporting second language learners, and what are people doing to support that?
Yeah, it has. I'm trying to think of the last time we had that conversation, so I could go look for it. And what I was actually just gonna say, if I were to add any language, it would be Russian and Ukrainian. That seems to be a huge need where we are now. So that's one answer to one question.
Okay, got your
and
vote. I wrote it
Yeah,
down.
because if I
on my
if I had a
sticky note.
vote, if I have a vote, you're giving Mike and his index cards. I think when we talk about the work of comprehensive literacy, it is so multi-layered because we've got that communication component that Project Core really looks at. When we look at literacy and literacy development, we've got countries, some of which we've already talked about their languages that are very far and different in how literacy develops. Like the basic core of literacy is literacy. And we do have families who are from many of these countries that you have mentioned that are participating in this group. And I think, whether I've done like a concerted question about it, I haven't probably, but I think we've just kind of looked at, okay, what are the spaces where we can easily all come to an agreement on, and things like shared reading are, maybe not as culturally dominant in some places, right? Like not every place is the priority, sit down and read a book with your child, because sometimes the priority is what am I working or what food am I providing and how am I doing, like how am I living for survival versus literacy development. But I do think that I try when I'm thinking about how do we implement things to know not every student is going to have high tech, not every language is going to be available, though we do have lots of options. But when we look at, to me, it's like two different questions. It's the literacy development aspect and it's the communication develop aspect, which is more in the Project Core end of things. They go hand in hand, but it's two kind of interwoven things.
Okay, so put your other votes in. What other languages should we focus on?
So Lauren, what are the languages that you're doing right now?
I am working on Spanish, Mongolian, Amharic, which is the language of Ethiopia, and Arabic.
Okay, so in Stafford, Pashto, Dari, and Arabic are outside of Spanish are our top four.
Okay.
So I'm, maybe looking at one of those or some of those. Our Korean is also in our top 10.
Hey, well, if I could say something, Washtenaw Literacy has teaches tutors with literacy, both ESL and basic literacy for adults, but I was thinking if there's that maybe you could tell the parents about this because it's free. And if you have a volunteer tutor to learn, they can work with the parent and the family. They have a LIFT program, which is for the entire family. And they can proceed. I live in Montana and I've done it I worked with Watchdog Literacy. So just letting you know that Watchdog
That's
Literacy
great.
is in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay, that's great. Another great resource. Okay, thank you. I'm noting all of these down.
Lauren, are you guys looking to do the same thing for the DLMPD website for Tar Heel Shared Reader? Sorry, I know that's like opening. a whole can of
No,
worms.
There was something for the shared reading module. When I talked to them, there's a way that it's set up. Okay, I'm like speaking out on something I don't exactly know 100%. But when I talked to Dr. Erickson, I believe, or maybe it was Dr. Geist, I believe there's a way in the shared reader module to be able to translate in another language the way that it's set up, or there's some sort of control or something in there. I mean, I can follow up with them and ask them more. And, you know, any additional like directions on the website on how to do that would be great. Same thing with alternate pencil. They have a module. So the shared reading is 5 modules. The alternate pencil is just 1. It's just 1 video. And they are all in YouTube. So you can use the captioning and change the captioning and put the captioning in the language. But again, it's dependent on quick reading as they're speaking, like, because you have to read the captions. So you have to be literate in your language and be able to read quite quickly sometimes. And also know that it's translated. So it's like a little bumpy because I'm sure it's not perfect because there are technical terms in there, but it could give somebody the idea of maybe what to do. Okay, let me follow up on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna circle back to just to say, like, I love that you sit down and do parent trainings and like have these conversations with families and make them a part of the team. That's something that we are often talking about is like, how can we ensure that parents have an active voice and a role at the table? And I think sometimes it's easy to bring them in for an IEP meeting and then send them home, but not continue that relationship. And so, and I think that's a lot of that mindset shift that we started off talking about too, is it not only needs to happen with our educational teams, but also helping families understand they have an equal part at this table with us, a very valued role, and inviting them along. So I loving what you're sharing today.
Thank you. So we have our students, when they get their new communication device, we always allow for it to go home, but one of our little like dangling carrot is like, you have to come in for parent training before it can go home, because it doesn't make sense for it to go home, because then they don't really know what to do, with the device. One of the things that we have a coaching model that we've really simplified for the families about what are the main strategies to sort of to start with. And we do use that Project Core that it's like, hold on, I have it right here. Oh, maybe I don't. Somebody took it off my desk. It's like the Say It With Core, and it's got like routines like going home, the like packing up your backpack, the mealtime routines. And so a lot of those routines are things that they do at home, or they're, commonplace. So we have that one's already in Spanish. We're going to share that one with UNC so they could share it on the website. But we'll talk about that and we'll plan that. And after we present each one of the sort of strategies, like the first strategy we present is have the device out. And then we say, how would this look in your family life? What's something that you do when you need to remember to do something new? Like, I put it on a sticky note, I put a notification in my phone or whatever, and we relate it back to the family. So we ask them some questions so they can reflect on what they might do, because we're basically coaching them to change a habit or start something new, so they don't know, oh, I need to charge it or I need to have it out. And then the next one we might say like modeling, what are some things that you might start modeling this week? And so we try to ask simple questions in that initial training about what they might do and have them reflect on it. So instead of being like a passive, just like receiving the information, really be involved in thinking about what they might do differently. And that's helped it to stick. And then we oftentimes get these great, photos, videos, messages back from the families, and they say, they did this, or I never thought they would do it, or, and so we get those like immediate ones. And once they are getting feedback that it's working, basically because their child is making progress, then they're hooked and they're like, oh, I wish I started this before, why didn't we start this earlier? Or I didn't even know about this. Everybody should know about this, So then they're really invested and they're really into it.
And I'm gonna
Are you
piggyback.
are you guys doing family trainings like that? Or what does it look like? Or what are other people doing? I'm curious.
Yeah, Alyssa, where I was going as you were saying that was not even families, but was where we started today's conversation with, we have staff that aren't modeling on student devices, or they're only modeling in English, but they're not modeling in Spanish or in the student's native language. And all of what you just shared are simple, easy, small snippets that we can help have the conversation. So it's not just telling people like, hey, you need to do this. It's giving them an opportunity to think about like, okay, so what's going to help you remember to have the student's device out? Okay, so what are some maybe visuals that you need to have to help you to remember, how do I shift between English and Spanish in the device? And helping that mindset shift so that they start to see the power of it versus looking and being like, oh gosh, here comes Lauren down the hallway. I need to grab the device out and start using it. And so I think for us, I'm going to say kind of Carolyn and I don't work directly with students and families, but a lot of what we're really doing is helping educators kind of have the space to rethink, how do we partner with families? How do we include families as equal individuals at the table? And challenging them to think kind of beyond, we talk to families at IEP meetings, which is a lot of what we hear. So just being better question askers. What about others on this call who work directly with teams and families?
Yeah, we do the
Retired
same.
now.
Go ahead, Irene.
Sorry, I'm retired now, but last year I did Project Core and I did it with families and staff. So I ran it after school hours and allowed both let it open to everybody. And in some classrooms when that happened, it worked out really nicely because they could team up together with people who were working with the child. And I also did it, it was virtual, so you didn't have to come in, they could come from wherever they were at.
I love that idea of using virtual. We've seen that a lot since the pandemic, and I think it helps it make it more accessible for families. Alyssa, you were unmuting, kind of sharing. Tell us more.
Yeah, so we do some similar to what Lauren was saying. We do lots of school level training, and then when we put a loaner device out, we are 100% in support of it going home. We just ask, we try to meet with a family, and sometimes that ends up being virtually. Most of the time it's in person. And kind of, it's more of a like operational plus here are some really easy routines that you can integrate it into. We know the kid loves bubbles. Here's information, whether it's from the Gimme 5 from, assisted work classroom. We try to incorporate routines that we know that are happening in that home that could just be integrated easily. The whole idea for me about a device going home is that the family sees its worth and sees that it's not overwhelming. Yes, it's like an uphill battle of a learning process of how do we fully integrate this device, but initially what I want them to see is, hey, this makes life a little bit more easy and if possible, a little more fun. I can have those interactions with my learner. So that's, we don't do as much as we would like, but I think we're trying at a school level, and then especially where we have concentrations of lots of kids using devices, and then doing that parent training before a device goes home, or as a device goes home.
Yeah, I'm finding just so we are a grant in Michigan, and so we've partnered with another grant that really focuses on supporting families of students with IEPs. And typically it's just a mindset shift of, yes, your student can do these things. Just because they have a disability doesn't mean they're lesser than. I did a whole conversation on how to Google, because I feel like a lot of parents don't understand exactly what they're looking for. So how do you put in the right search terms to Google or YouTube? But more often than not, coming out of those really quick webinars is that opportunity that they feel that they can go talk to somebody about whatever tool they're looking for, not necessarily just AAC. I think that's part of it, but also my student has dyslexia, or my student has autism, or my student has ADHD, and I don't know where to even start, and just getting them connected to feel that they can even ask those questions. Because I think that a lot of parents don't know what they don't know yet. So they don't even know that they can open up that conversation to have with educators and their team.
And so Carolyn and I also co-host a podcast. If you didn't know, that's totally fine. But on it, we interviewed an AAC user and a parent of an AAC user. And then we asked the parent kind of like, what advice would you give other families? And this, for me, I'm going to eventually at some point make it into a beautiful, like, quotable, shareable document, but that's on my to-do list. It's way down. Yeah, let's be honest, it's going to be Carolyn. That's her jam. But she really talked about, she said, I think it would be to continue focusing on your child and the interactions and the communication that you already have, that already exists, and then build on that in small ways by just adding in the device use, that it doesn't necessarily have to replace the communication that you already have going on and the great things that you're doing. And I think sometimes, like, we talk a lot about how we're all multimodal communicators. I see lots of people like nodding their heads or smiling. And that when we introduce devices, I know I probably have made this mistake as an SLP, where I'm super excited and I'm like, all right, look how we're going to use this, and we can do it this way and this way. But really affirming for people, like, you are already communicating with your child. This is one more tool, one more avenue. And I think it's the same when we work with teachers and other educators, is we need to accept all forms of communication and build on those relationships that already exist. Yeah, I was the overexcited SLP with my cape and like all the devices and my big super duper bag and all the other not good stuff. Is anyone else doing anything cool, like with families, or have any other questions? We have 3 minutes.
Or maybe we just end 3 minutes early and call it good.
I just want to say thank you. This was really awesome to talk with all of you. This is
So are we having an open forum this month every time, or what are you doing next week?
Yeah, what was the book?
So
Mike had us like do a poll for the book. What was the
Yeah.
book we
Yeah,
decided on?
He did, and it said the coaching the gym night.
The Gym Night one? Okay.
Yes, that one, Carolyn.
Okay,
Better
Better conversations.
Okay.
but we don't have a schedule as to when we're starting or what we're
Yeah,
doing.
he said last week, we're looking at probably April, just so that we don't coincide with a ton of people's breaks and give everybody time to get the book. And so, yeah, not until then. He's gonna put out, yep, both
Yeah,
of them
both.
have.
Ooh.
So there's,
both,
yeah,
okay.
the one on her left is a reflection guide. It's kind of like a journal process for the book.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, lots of cool like
Mm.
questions and that go with it. So, and then I think next week or the week after, he has the Quiet Leadership coming back again to talk about their book study, but I don't remember which week it is, to be fair.
Okay,
And
that
Naomi's
sounds
not
good.
here, so we can't ask her either.
Yeah, no, they are both doing a doing a training elsewhere.
Okay.
They're overbooked. We got it. We got the shaft today. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey.
We did not. We did not.
It was a
This
great day.
conversation, this was an awesome. We got Sarah Lynn.
We can get Sarah Lynn. You are
I
a
love
listener.
I am.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, I don't see anything as far as what the actual topics are. So yeah. What we'll
Put
do
that
is,
stuff up already? Come on now.
I don't know. I'm looking. There's nothing.
No, he hasn't yet.
No, he hasn't. There was another good book though, and a colleague of mine read it and I just ordered it. It was one of the other ones on the list because she said, oh, this was the best. And it was like the fastest read. She said her husband got it from work. It's the coaching habit
Yeah.
one.
This one.
the Say
Yeah,
less,
that
ask
one.
more. That one. Yeah. She said she just devoured it. She and her husband. She said, my husband got this from work. And I said, let's like read it
Yeah.
together.
It's a real,
And-
it's a fast read for
Yeah,
sure.
she said she just like
Mhm.
Yeah,
breeze
I think
through
we
it.
could go on books in this category for the next year and a half and not exhaust all of them.
I know.
I'm in. Let's do it.
Sounds awesome to me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I do have to run because I have another meeting, but it's great to be with all of you. Keep
Thank you,
listening.
everyone.
Keep on listening to that podcast.
Perfect. Thanks so much, guys. See you
Guys.
next time.
Bye.